Everyone goes into negotiation saying there's a winner and loser. It could be win-win.
Yeah.
You have to understand when you win there that you're probably not going to get everything you want.
Mm.
So it's, if you come in there and say, hey, this is what I really like to get, but this is acceptable. So when, as I was an attorney, and that was one of the things I would do with my clients, I'd sit them down before negotiation. I say, okay, I understand that's what you really want, but I don't think that's reasonable. And here's why.
Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to another knowledge bomb episode of Lead to Greatness, where we believe in helping others reach their greatest potential and together change the world. Today on Lead to Greatness, we have Chris Walls. And if this is your first time, don't forget to subscribe. Hit that like button, hit the notification bell so you won't miss any of these amazing episodes. And if you're on iTunes, go ahead and rate the podcast and leave a review. That helps get the word out to great leaders and entrepreneurs like yourself. Please help me welcome Chris with Win-Win Negotiation. This is Cedric Francis, and you're listening to Lead to Greatness.
My name's Chris Walls. I'm the CEO of Go Minis Franchising, and we are a portable storage and moving company that has about 114 franchisees in 42 states across the U.S. And it's a simple concept. There are a couple of companies out there that also we compete with, as you might expect, but it's basically containerized moving. So we empower franchisees to go out and become entrepreneurs and be successful entrepreneurs, and we help them do that. And it's we have storage containers that come in 3 different sizes and delivered right to your door. They can be moved across town or across country. You could use them for storage locally. We could store it for you. You can keep it on your property. It's a fairly simple concept, but really serves a need for a lot of people that either have temporary or sometimes even longer term storage needs.
So you're talking about the big storage units that we typically see sitting in the driveway or?
Exactly. That's exactly right. It's different from your mini storage where you have to load up a truck and take your belongings over there. We actually bring the container to you. We call them minis. We bring the mini to you and you load it up. It can sit there. We rent them by the month. It could sit there for as long as you'd like, or we could come pick it up right away. We can come pick it up and move it to a new location if you're moving.
Wow.
One of the most stressful things you'll ever do in your life is moving, in my opinion. And I've done it several times. And it really takes a lot of the stress out because it's very reasonable to rent. They rent on 30-day increments. So you can come, you're going to move in a month, or you're going to move in 2 weeks. You can take 2 weeks to load it up in your driveway. It's at low height. You don't have to rent a truck or drive or anything. You load it up, take your time, do it carefully so nothing gets damaged. Give us a call. We take it across town. You can take 2 weeks to unload it if you'd like. None of those, hey, I got a project on Saturday. I got to go find a couple of my friends and buy them some pizza so they'll come over and help me. You can just take your time, do a little bit each night after work or whatever works for you. So it really does take a lot of stress out.
I love it. I love it. I love it. So yeah, hats off to you and your organization for what you do. You also mentioned the franchise. So how does that work?
So it's great. You come in and you would get a protected territory. We usually do it by population, somewhere between 400 to even a couple million people, and you'd pay a fee for that, a territory fee, and then we set you up with proprietary systems that we have, our operating system that we have. We give you some training. We help you with marketing. We have a marketing department that helps you with the digital marketing, educate you about that if you're not familiar with it. And you basically, what we like to say is that you're in business for yourself, but not by yourself. So we help you if you're a budding entrepreneur, but you're a little nervous about doing it on your own. We're there to help you and try and hopefully have you avoid some of the mistakes that some of our other franchisees may have made or you might make on your own and that sort of thing. So it really is a great way for someone who wants to get into business for themselves, that has a little bit of protection, but also has a formula that has been successful for so many of our franchisees around the country.
So how long have you guys been doing this?
Well, we started out as a dealership, which is a little different than a franchisee in 2002, and we became a franchise in 2012. So we've been around for about 12 years or so as a franchise. And, a lot of we're growing fairly well. I'm adding about 10, 12 franchises a year. Most of our growth, though, is coming from our existing franchises, which to me is really a badge of honor, because that means that they think the system works. They're successful entrepreneurs. They see that it's a great way to make a living and to give back to their communities a little bit, which we try and do. and we encourage at the franchise level and the franchisee level. It really is something that you can create. A lot of people like coming out of the military. I've done my
Yeah.
20 years of service to our country, and now they're looking for something to do. And they come out and they can work here for 10 or 15 years. Now they have a business they can hand down to their children or sell if they want to when they finally do actually retire. If we just pick let's say a 1 million person territory, you're probably going to have you need about $1.2 million, which
Okay.
seems like a very daunting figure at first. But a couple of things. Not all that is due up front. You do pay a territory fee, which would be about $100,000. And then there's some startup costs, and you have to
Mhm.
order your first set of containers for that would be around 100 containers. The containers are about $4,000 a piece
Mhm.
by the time you get them to your doorstep. But we are SBA approved, and you can get into a franchise with about 10% down with good credit.
Wow.
So you can get started and get up and running, and the numbers will work for you with that financing. And then as those containers get paid for, your margins on that business, you start growing that business. You do very, very well. You don't need to have a number of employees. It could be a mom and pop operation. You could have our largest franchisee has about 1,200 containers, and he's got 5 employees that
Mm.
are dedicated to that business.
Wow.
So not, which is an issue. It's tough to find good help lately, good employees and loyal that show up and so you can rely on yourself or maybe one or two other people and grow this business. And the good thing about it, it's very scalable. If you
Wow.
start out with 100 containers, you can use one truck and one driver. And when you get to 200, maybe you don't need a second truck just yet, but maybe a part-time driver, and then
Yeah.
250, yeah, let's get another truck and that sort of thing. So you don't have to add a lot of cost into the business to grow. Makes it very scalable. And then as you're in business longer and your business is growing, your numbers start improving because your costs are coming down, actually, believe it or not. So
Yeah. And what I love about this concept and everything you're saying, I mean, you already have the system. You already, okay, at what point do you need to buy the second vehicle? Because sometimes in business, we would, we kind of, if you don't know what you're doing or you kind of starting out without that formula or you overbuy, maybe purchase four vehicles and you only need one. So, I mean, I really love this scaling aspect of it. And I think it's definitely good for someone that want to do something and want to get into business, want to work for themselves, but the system has already been laid out for them. I think that's really great. What type of entrepreneur that this is set up for?
that's a great question, Cedric. And it's a broad array of people that can be successful here, but
Uh-huh.
it's a difficult thing. I've worked in a number of different jobs. I'm an attorney by training, and I've been a corporate attorney. I've been a litigator. I've been all these different things. Then I got into business. Making a transition from a corporate employee to an entrepreneur is probably the most difficult thing that I've ever seen because
Mm.
you're used to showing up for work and getting a paycheck every day.
Yeah.
And it's a different mindset. And you really need to, like, when that potential franchisee comes in, I try and scare them a little bit. It's like, listen, it's like, if you don't get up out of bed and you don't go and work as hard as you can every day, that money's not coming in the door. Where
Yeah.
sometimes, I'm not feeling it, and you go into work at a corporate office, like, I didn't do as much as I should, but I'll make
Yeah.
it up tomorrow. Like,
Yeah.
you gotta punch that clock every day as an entrepreneur,
Yeah.
and punch in and punch out. And sometimes those days are a heck of a lot longer than corporate America.
Yeah.
So I
Absolutely.
think you need someone who's got the entrepreneurial mindset, which I do think it's really is the mindset where you can flip the switch, say, okay, this is my business. I own this. I really have to work hard.
Yeah.
That's probably the most important factor is like, this isn't easy. We make it easier because of the system we have,
Mm.
but it is hard work. And not everybody's a marketer. Not everybody is a truck driver. Not everybody is great on the phone. So
Yeah.
you need to figure out and doing a personal inventory is, what am I good at? What do I
Yeah.
like to do? Wow, I really like marketing. Okay, great. That's a great skill. But I'm horrible at on the phone trying to close a sale.
Mhm.
Okay, great. Hire that person in. Hire someone who's got that skill set. Take your personal inventory, figure out what you're good at, try and get better at it, but figure out what you're good at. Hire in other people that can do those skills for you. And we have a lot of things to help. We give them job descriptions of this is the type of person you're looking for. Here's
Mm.
some scripts. This is what people should say on the phone
Yeah.
and, personalize it and that sort of thing. We try and help them along, but a lot of times entrepreneurs and smart people like, I'm great at everything.
Yeah,
Like, no, no, no. Let's be honest with ourselves. Let's start
yeah,
with that. Like, what are you
absolutely.
really good at? What are you great at? And it's just not worth your time to develop that skill set because of where you are and what we're trying to do. And we have a limited amount of time to get you to profitability. I think negotiation is one of the things that I do very, very well. And I try and do that in a way that it's other oriented. So I think negotiation, everyone, in my opinion, most people walk into negotiations, this is what I need to get out of this negotiation.
Mm,
And I actually go in the exact opposite. It's like, what do you, Cedric? What do you need? What do I think Cedric wants from me out of this negotiation? And how can I give that to you? Because if I'm giving you something, you're more likely to give me something in return.
yeah,
So that's where I look at that. And then I think there's two other really important things is you have to be fair and you have to be honorable. And it may be the only deal we're ever going to do, but I have to treat you in a negotiation, in my opinion, like I'm going to see you every day for the rest of my life, and I want to make sure that I treated you fairly and
yeah,
I treated you honestly. And I
yeah,
think with that, and people can sense that, in my opinion, and they realize when you tell them something that they have to take on faith and say, okay, yeah, I think that Chris is going to go ahead and do what he said he's going to do, and they don't know you that well. A lot of those things come into play when it's like, yes, he seems like an honorable person. He seems like he's a fair person. He's not trying to take advantage of me. He understands my needs and he's trying to meet those needs. So that's one of the things I do. I think I do very well. And there's a lot of that in selling franchises because some people and a lot of our folks, this is the biggest investment they've ever made. And
mm,
all of a sudden they're putting their trust in Go Minis and me to make sure that hey, they're going to be successful and the money that they're investing in Go Minis they're going to get a good return for that. So I always try and I tell them the good, I tell them the bad, I tell them the ugly, but we have a lot of people that have been very, very successful at it, and I don't see any reason why you couldn't be and try and be honest, but really want to make sure they understand there's some downsides to it. It's not all roses, and sometimes you gotta get through the thorns before you actually can smell that rose, right?
yeah, 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 yeah.
Are you willing to follow a system? And I think that's really
Mm,
important because a lot of would-be entrepreneurs or people that have had success in other things that they've done on their own. I'm the smartest guy in the room and I know how to do it. And you're
yeah,
telling me to do it this way. And even though 100 other franchisees have been successful doing it this way, I'm going to be better at it. I'm going to do it my way. And look, that from our perspective, I want to hear as the franchisor, I want to hear your ideas because that's how we grow. It's like, hey, that's a really good idea. Let's make that available to everyone in the network.
wow,
But something that's been tried and true, and we know that this is the process that works, you need to follow that. And a
yeah,
lot of times people get into trouble like, I don't do that. I do it this way. And I'm
yeah,
like, well, do you understand that it's costing you twice as much? Or do you understand that you could be doing more business if you did this way because it takes so much time? That sort of thing. And so we make a lot of tools available to franchisees. So we want them to use them. We don't, we're not trying to waste their time. Well, we're trying to make the business run as efficiently as possible. Their propensity to follow the processes and systems that are in place, I think, is probably the number one thing after you look at the economic piece. So
I love it. I want to kind of talk a little bit more about negotiation strategies because this is your strength. What are three key lessons that you would like the audience to take away from your journey in negotiation?
that's a really, really good question, Cedric. From my perspective, I think, as I mentioned a little earlier, everyone goes into negotiation saying there's a winner and loser. It could be win-win.
Yeah.
You have to understand when you go in there that you're probably not going to get everything you want.
Mm,
So it's, if you come in there and say, hey, this is what I really like to get, but this is acceptable. So when, as I was an attorney, and that was one of the things I would do with my clients, I'd sit them down before negotiation. I say, okay, I understand that's what you really want, but I don't think that's reasonable. And here's why, because I don't think they're going to do that because of X, Y, and Z.
yeah.
I said, but they may get you close to that. Would this be acceptable? I could get you there. So kind of getting an agreement from my client or myself if I'm negotiating for myself. Okay, yeah, that's a nice to have, but what do I need to have? And have that
Ah,
going in. So now you have that buffer and you say, geez, I got halfway up to what would nice to have. I got well above what I needed to have. So that was a win for me.
yeah.
Or I got what I needed. Still a win.
Yeah.
from that perspective. So making sure you or your client has reasonable expectations as to what's going to happen, and then trying to look at the other side, and I use that a lot. It's like, why would they do that? Why
Yeah.
would they give that to you? That would you do that if you were on? No, I wouldn't do that, but that's what I want. I'm like, okay, so how reasonable that? We're trying to
Right.
avoid further problems. We're trying to settle a problem. We're trying to move forward.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. And then the other thing that helps with me is having been a litigator for about nine or 10 years. Everyone likes to say, well, I'm just going to sue you.
Mm.
And I like, well, I did that for a living. And I said, and a lot of times, who makes out the best in litigation? The lawyers.
Mm.
And the people would come back, equally or not equally unhappy, but unhappy with the result. And they're mad at the lawyer. They're mad at everybody.
Mm.
But, from the standpoint of, if you've never been through it, if it's something that's really important to you, when there's litigation involved, you go to bed every night thinking about that. You wake up every morning thinking about that.
Mm.
Things that maybe you'd like to keep private may become public. All these different things that go on. It's not a fun thing if you have a very highly contested lawsuit. So I
Yeah.
try and bring that to bear on negotiations as well. It's like, listen, I've been there. I'm not happy to do it, but I'll do it. And I don't like to lose when it comes to litigation. So,
Yeah.
but no, we can settle this before we get there. So again, reasonableness. Let's be
Yeah.
reasonable. Let's be fair and move forward. So I think those takeaways, from the standpoint of negotiation, if you do look like it is like, no, this is what we're trying to get to, is that each side, and I always say the hallmark of a great negotiation is both sides are equally unhappy,
Mm.
right? Because you never get what neither side never gets 100% of what they
Right.
want.
Yeah. Yeah.
Everyone got a little bit of something. So
Yeah.
for me, it's kind of, you go along and say, okay, let's move on and live to, get that behind us and go on living and be happy, that sort of thing. And I use a philosophy, which my franchisees are probably tired of hearing. I call crawl, walk, run, particularly when you're implementing change. Okay, we don't know what we're doing here sometimes. We think we're really smart, but we don't know as much maybe as we think. So let's move a little slow in the beginning and figure it out, because we're going to make a mistake and we're moving slow, and you bump into something doing 5 miles an hour, maybe you get a little bruise. Bump into something 100 miles an hour, that's going to be catastrophic. So we're
Mm.
in the crawl phase. We're starting to walk a little bit, and then we're going to be running, and that's probably next year that we're going to be off to the races on that. So that's probably my biggest challenge there. Is something that I think challenges a lot of people, and has challenged me in my career over the last 10 years is change.
Mm.
I actually enjoy and embrace change,
Yeah.
but sometimes you forget.
Yeah.
Sometimes you're sitting there, and then all of a sudden, who moved my cheese? And oh, this is everything's changed. Like,
Yeah.
what do I do? And I have to do a reset and say,
Mm.
this is a good thing. I
Mm.
have a friend who's a serial entrepreneur, and he deliberately, when he starts a new company, he deliberately doesn't use anything, operating systems or software. He goes new all the time,
Wow.
because from his philosophy, he's like, I get locked in my old ways, and there's other things out there that are cheaper, are better, and I'm never
Mm.
going to learn them if I just fall back on my own ways. So
Amazing.
I have to remind myself, to challenge myself to accept the change, which I generally enjoy once I do it, but sometimes you forget a little bit. And that's, embrace the change, be intellectually curious, which I am. I'm like, oh, let me figure that out. I don't know
Ah.
about that. And then I go off and I'll spend a week researching a topic, learning about it, and say, okay, this is how we're going to use it. For example, AI, huge challenge right now, right? How do you use it? How do you use it responsibly? How do you get your employees and the people you want to develop to be using that, but using it in a way that it's not, I don't want to say cheating, but that it's developing them and working forward with the company, not just doing their work for them, so to speak, right?
Gotcha.
And using that as like, oh, you look at it as, and we had a guest speaker at our conference, and he had a great way to look at that. Guy's name was Ford Sakes, and did an excellent job at our keynote speaker at our last conference. But he did 15 minutes on AI, and he said, think of ChatGPT and AI as a highly educated intern, but they don't have a lot of experience. They don't know your business. So when you
Ah.
ask ChatGPT to do something, look at the product that is produced. under that guise, and you'll do well with that. And that, I thought that was just great advice, and it's worked. I use ChatGPT almost every day now, and
Mm.
it's worked very well. It's like, hey, this is a good basis for us. Saves a lot of time, but you can't just say, oh, great, take it off the printer. Here you go. My franchisees were I think they weren't aware of it, or they were afraid of it from a
Mm.
ChatGPT standpoint. He came up and explained it in ways that they could help. And just as an example, we started doing with our social media posts, we started asking for help with ChatGPT for writing our titles.
Mm.
And we went up 300% on engagement
Wow.
just by having AI write the titles for our social media posts.
Amazing.
You know,
Amazing.
and that's the thing. We have a small team, and now what we're able to do is leverage AI to make our team be that much more productive. Of say,
Yes.
we have 3 people in the marketing team. Now it looks like there's 6 people in the marketing team,
Yes. Yes.
because that's the kind of production we're getting out and the quality
Yes.
of production we're getting out. Shout out to my team. I challenged them when I went to a conference about a year and a half ago and sat in on an AI portion of it. And I came back and I said, this is going to change the world. We need to figure out how it's going to help this. And oh, by the way, so it can change the world. I'm not sure it's all going to be good, by the way, but
Yeah.
I said this is a very useful tool, and we need to figure out how we can use it to help us and help our franchisees. And
Yeah.
that next day, I got work from them. Hey, I did this through Chat GPT. What do you think?
Amazing.
Is
Amazing.
amazing. It really, I give them a lot of credit, because that was, a lot of people will be afraid, well, that's going to take my job. AI is going
Yeah.
to take, no, 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 it's not. It's going to augment, it's going to help you do that. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Knowledge bomb. This is so good. This is really good. Besides AI, what is the topic that you are super passionate about right now and why?
besides my wife and children every day,
Yeah.
from a business perspective, I would say marketing and digital marketing. So when I look at what GoMinis really is going to become over the next 5 years, we're going to become a marketing company, more of a
Mm.
marketing company than we've ever been. The reason is digital marketing is so important these days. But there's been so much focus on businesses like ours where that's all they're doing. And
Mm.
what ended up happening is people got away from kind of grassroots marketing,
Yeah.
knocking on doors, making sure they're part of their community,
Yeah.
donating containers to charitable organizations that maybe are having a coat drive in the wintertime, that are doing something where they could use extra space because they're doing a run to raise money for cancer research or something
Yeah.
like that. We need to be there. And I think everybody was focused on the digital marketing, and they got away from that personal touch a little bit.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
digital marketing is still huge
Yeah.
and still a big piece of our business, and we're not going to go away from that. But there's so much other marketing you can do to make your business grow, and when things were very, very busy over the last couple of years for us, that's all we focused on digital. Things have slowed down a little bit with the real estate market, some other things. Now it's time to get out there and knock on doors so people know who you are. People know you live in the community as a franchisee, that your kids go to the same schools as theirs, and that you're here to help them when they have a project or something like that, and be a productive member of community and get involved in charitable organizations, and that sort of thing, which you really encourage. So I just brought in a CMO, a chief marketing officer, and she's focusing on both digital marketing, but also kind of the grassroots marketing and reminding people. We're developing marketing playbooks for our franchisees, saying,
Yeah.
hey, this is how you should approach this type of B2B vertical.
Yeah.
This is what we recommend, and that sort of thing. So that's really one of the things that I'm most passionate about. And then the second would be our long distance marketing, because it's a new line of business, and it's a way for our franchisees, going to be a way for our franchisees to have more revenue from really the same business platform that they have, without spending a lot of extra money on their marketing, or extra money on equipment or anything like that. It's just another add-on. So
Wow. Wow.
they're
Wow.
my two passion projects right now.
Chris, before we go, what are some practical leadership strategies, growth tips, tool, advice that you can share with the Lead to Greatness community to help us reach our greatest potential?
So, as you can tell, Cedric, I'm not a young man anymore, so I've seen a lot of things. And what I really, really love about leadership right now is I have a little sign across the way from me. It's called "That's the price of leadership." Everyone
Mm.
thinks when you're the boss, sort of, that's all great and it's easy and that sort of thing. you make tough decisions all the time. And I remind myself of that at least, probably twice a week. That's the price of leadership. It's not necessarily a popularity contest, but make sure you're doing the right things, have integrity, and do the right things for the right reasons. So that's kind of how I try and manage. But where I've gotten to in my career, I truly believe I'm one of the most fortunate people that walks on this earth, because I have a lot of people who have helped me along the way. So what I'm trying to do now is, as I have young people that work with me, I'm trying to develop them.
Yeah.
And I always tell them, I said, listen, I'd love for you to work for Gominis for the rest of your life. I said, but I don't know how realistic that is in today's economy. But what I want to do is prepare you and make you better to be successful at your next job. And I said, I will treat you fairly. You will never be surprised by me if it's not going well. You will know that in advance. But I also would hope that you would do the same if you're not happy with what's going on. You do that, and I'll take that under advisement. I won't be angry at you. I will take that just as I should and respect you as a human and that sort of thing. So what I really think for me for leadership is developing the young folks. And I had the good fortune of working for a startup in New York City. And I was the CEO, and I were friends, school friends, and we were the oldest guys in the room. And we had 100 employees in one big room. And you see and hear everything. The average age was 28 years old. These kids were smart, and they knew how to use the technology. And we had a wonderful exchange of ideas and knowledge. And they would show me how to use some of the things that I wasn't familiar with on a new app or something like that. I'm like, oh, that's amazing. And then they go to a business negotiation, and they're like, okay, and there's like, I said, well, where do you want to end up? And they're like, well, $1 million. I think it's $1 million sale. I'm like, okay, great. Where are you starting? He said, $1 million. I was like, well, that's not how it works,
Right.
And then we walked through some strategy, and they came back, and I said, you're going to start at 5 million. He said, they'll throw us out of the office. I'm like, no, they won't. And then they come back. I said, where'd you end? $1.5 million. And I'm like, you think you would end it at $1.5 million if you started it? No. So it's just wonderful knowledge exchange. And I just realized how rewarding that was, that I felt that I was helping these kids who are, smart as whips. They were just, and good kids. And I call them kids. They're young adults. It was just rewarding. So for me, that's what I look at, because I know that I would not be where I am today if it wasn't for somebody that took me under my wing and said, what are you doing? That's not how you do that. Come here. Let me help you with that. And people that had a mentor or mentee relationship with me without being formalized, but someone that just you struck up a good relationship with, and they wanted to help others. And that's what I'm trying to do now. So my biggest thing from a leadership perspective is developing the people that work with me. So.
Wow, Chris, I'm gonna give you a humanitarian right now. This is so amazing. Really grateful for what you do, what you're doing in your community, what you're doing in the global community, and all around the world. So on behalf of the Lead to Greatness community, I just want to say thank you, Chris. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Cedric. I really appreciate your time today, and it's great learning about you and what you have going on and what you're doing to give back to the community. As I'm like I said to you before we got on here, I'm honored to be part of the Lead to Greatness podcast and to have met you. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Chris, if someone wanted to connect with you and what you're doing, where should they go?
Best way to do it is go to our website. We have info@gominis.com. It comes right to my email, so I get that and I can reach back out to them. Is probably the easiest way to get hold of me. info@gominis.com.
We want to thank you for joining us today on the Lead to Greatness podcast. So remember, if you help others reach their greatest potential, together we can change the world. Peace.